Hey y'all, in today's video I'm going to be sharing 4 new to me recipes that I think is perfect for fall time. Just some like good, hearty, cozy cooking. I don't know about y'all, but September and October is my 2 favorite months out of the whole year. As you can probably tell, I've already broke out the fall shirts and some fall decor, which by the way, those are curtains. I have just not hung them up yet. But anyways, so yeah, like fall and Halloween is my absolute favorite. So it is my time to shine. That's how I feel. It just makes me like an overall happier person, which I really think that just motivates me more to want to cook. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously I love to cook, but you know, I can slack too, just like everyone else. But I've noticed every year, like when it's fall time, I'm constantly in the kitchen and I'm whipping out those recipes. And now's the time to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because you're gonna want to be on the lookout. Lots of good stuff coming in the weeks ahead. So yeah, I believe that's enough talking for an intro, so let's go ahead and get cooking. Okay, so first up, I made this homemade bean and bacon soup. I know that there's a popular like canned version by Campbell's that a lot of people love. I remember when I was younger, my mom would have it all the time, but it never sounded appetizing to me. But of course, over the years, my taste buds have changed, so this was my first time ever having it, and it was incredible. So the first thing I did is I grabbed a pack of bacon. I'm going with the Hometown Original by Smithfield. I'm going to use about half of it. You don't need the full package. And I'm just going to chop it up using my sharpest knife, or you can do some scissors. I absolutely hate having to chop bacon. It's always kind of a struggle for me for whatever reason. But yeah, so I'm just going to throw that into my hot Dutch oven, and I'm just going to cook that up until it's nice and crispy. Meanwhile, I'm going to grab 2 carrots and peel and wash those and just roughly chop that up into like little small pieces like this. Perfect for like the soup size. So here we are back to the bacon. It is perfect to our liking. I'm going to go ahead and remove that to a paper towel lined plate just using my slotted spoon. And you're going to want to leave about 2 tablespoons of that bacon grease in the pot. So you are going to have to spoon some of that out, because at this point it's just way too much. And you definitely are going to want to save that bacon grease for other things, like you can throw it in some canned green beans. My favorite use for it is like bacon gravy to go over biscuits. You can season your cast iron with it. I mean, the list goes on. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my carrots to that bacon grease. And I'm also going to throw in about a cup of chopped celery. As I mentioned before, I like to freeze celery. When I buy it fresh, I will usually, cook it up, some of it up for a recipe that I bought it for. And then I will just dice it, put it in a freezer bag, and freeze it. And it's perfect for like soups and stuff like this. Works really well. And if you like onion, you could totally chop one up and throw it in at this point. But if you know me at all, you know I don't like that. So I just went in with some onion powder to get that flavor. So I'm just going to let that saute and cook for about 5 to 6 minutes or so, because you will want this to be really soft for this soup. And I'm also going to throw in a spoonful of minced garlic and just let that go for a minute or so. So now I'm going to add in 4 cups of chicken broth, and I'm going to add in 3 cans of these great northern beans. And I did wash and drain those and all that good stuff. Threw it on in the soup. If you are against canned beans and whatnot, I'm sure you can do this with the dried beans. You'll just have a longer cook time. So now I'm just going to season it up with some season it with some salt and a healthy amount of black pepper. And I did a little bit more onion powder. And I'm just going to let that come up to like a low boil. Then I'm going to pop my lid on, turn it down to low, and I'm going to let it cook for an hour. About halfway through that cooking time, I threw in some of these Mary B's yeast rolls in the oven. That is currently like our favorite frozen rolls. They take about 30 minutes or so. So here we are after the hour, lots of steam coming out, but I'm just going to go in with my potato masher, and I'm going to mash up about half of those beans. That way that this soup can thicken up some and just get that consistency that you're looking for. You can also use like an immersion blender here, but that thing kind of stresses me out. So that's why I'm using the potato masher. And now I'm going to add in an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, as well about half of that cooked bacon that I had crumbled up. And I'm just going to let this warm up for about 5 to 10 minutes so that that tomato sauce gets heated and the bacon gets heated back up. And that is it. It's ready to be served. So I'm just going to add 2 of those Mary B rolls to the side. And I bought some of this honey cinnamon butter from Kroger's to go on the rolls. It's really similar to like the Texas Roadhouse style butter that a lot of people love, including me. So yeah, I'm going to add a good amount of that onto my roll, and it was the perfect side to go along with this soup. But yeah, like I said, this was amazing. It was honestly my favorite meal from this whole video, which I did not expect at all. Both of the kids really liked it as well, and even Josh, which is saying something because he does not like soup beans. And when I told him I was making a bean soup, he did not look excited at all, but he loved it. Up next, I'm making Reese Witherspoon's recipe for chili cornbread pie. I feel like chili is like the #1 fall food in my opinion. I know a lot of people tell me that they serve their chili like over cornbread. I don't believe I have ever done that. The way we do it here is we like serve spaghetti noodles in our chili, like cook it in with the chili and top it with cheese and crushed saltine crackers. That's my favorite way, but I wanted to see what all the fuss was about, so let me show you how I did it. So you're going to want like an oven-proof skillet because this will need to be transferred to the oven, but if you don't have that, you can always just use a casserole dish to transfer this into before baking. But anyways, as you can see, I'm using my cast iron, and I added in 2 pounds of ground beef. She actually says that she uses 1 pound of ground pork and 1 pound of ground beef, but I wasn't sure if we'd like that, and I didn't feel like messing dinner up, so I just went with the 2 pounds of ground beef. And when it's about halfway cooked through, I like to go in with my seasonings. I do pretty much the same thing every time. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, so salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder, and I'm just going to let that continue browning up. Then I'm going to drain off the grease, and I'm going to add in a good amount of minced garlic, and I'm just going to let that cook in with the ground beef for a couple of minutes. And then you'll want to add in 2 packages of your favorite chili seasoning. My favorite is the French's Chilio seasoning. It's also my dad's favorite. And I don't know about y'all's stores, but these sell out quick. So if you see that packet of seasoning, you need to stock up. So next, I'm going to add in just a normal size can of diced tomatoes. I like to use the petite. That's what we prefer. And you'll also need a couple tablespoons of tomato paste. And that's also something that I freeze. Thanks to you guys. You guys let me know that, you know, you can do that. So yeah, thank you for that. I'm also going to add in 2 cups of chicken broth. And I'm just going to go in with some frozen corn. I didn't measure this. I just kind of eyeballed it. And you'll need 1 can of some dark red kidney beans, and I did rinse and drain those really well before adding that in. And I'm just going to let that simmer on the stove for about 5 minutes or so, basically until I get my cornbread mixture whipped up. So her recipe says to use 2 boxes of the Jiffy cornbread mix, but I decided to just go in with a full box of this one. I can't really pronounce that brand, so I ain't even going to try to, but there's also like jalapeno cornbread mixes you can get, and I think that would pair perfectly with this. Like, I think I'll try that next time, but you're basically just going to want to follow the directions on the back of the package. So I just added in some milk and some eggs, and she says to add in a little bit, like a half a cup of some sharp cheddar cheese, and I don't think I've ever done that with cornbread, and I don't know why. Like, cheese is everything. It's genius. So yeah, after I got that mixed up back to the stove, you can see that that chili mixture has like thickened up quite a bit, which is what you want. And then you're just going to want to add the cornbread mixture on the top. And at this point, I started to kind of worry. I thought for sure this was not going to work out because it looked like it was starting to kind of sink down a little bit, and I was thinking it was going to like all fall to the bottom, but it all worked out, so yay for that. So you're going to want to pop this in the oven at 375 degrees. The recipe says anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes, but I ended up pulling mine out around the 25-minute mark, I believe, because it was getting really brown on top. So just keep an eye on it. And also, you'll want to stick a cookie sheet underneath this because a little bit was starting to spill over the sides. Definitely not the prettiest thing you've ever seen, but once you serve it up in your bowl, I think it looks pretty darn good. And I just topped it with a little bit of extra cheese and a little bit of sour cream, and this was delicious. This was Josh's favorite meal out of the week, and it was my second favorite. Definitely a 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. Next, I made something a little bit out of my comfort zone. This is like a crock pot apple barbecue pork loin. I have had this recipe saved for years, but I could just never bring myself to make it. And I don't even know why. Like, it's not even all that crazy, but it has very few ingredients, and it is literally one of the most simplest crock pot meals I have ever made. So to the bottom of my crock pot, I'm going to add in about a 2-pound boneless pork tenderloin, and I'm just gonna plop that out of the package. And I didn't really like all the juices that came out with it, so I did go in with a paper towel, and I just tried to kind of absorb as much of that liquid as I could, and I kind of patted down the pork. So I did season this generously on both sides with some garlic and onion powder, but I do wish that I went in with like a good barbecue rub. I don't know why I did not think to do that, but anyways, you're gonna want to go in with your favorite barbecue sauce. Ours is the Sweet Baby Ray. The recipe called for about a cup, but I probably went a little bit over. I mean, doesn't really matter all that much. And then this is the ingredient that made me like a little bit nervous. It's just a can of country apple pie filling. And like I said, I mean, it's not even that crazy. I know that apples and pork is supposed to pair really well together, but it's just not something that I really do. So it's just really different to me. But yeah, I just spread that out, and then I put my lid on, and I ended up cooking mine on high for about 3 hours. And then I just shredded it up and served it over some white rice. I did season the top with a little bit of salt and pepper. It definitely needed it, otherwise it would be a little bit bland. And I served the apples on the side, and off camera I did end up drizzling it with some more barbecue sauce because it just needed it. That apple flavor was really strong. But yeah, with those adjustments, it was a really good meal, and I just paired it with some air fried Brussels sprouts. Lastly, I made some Mississippi chicken noodle soup. This was the recipe that I was the most excited for. I have been saving this for September. We absolutely love like Mississippi roast, Mississippi chicken. It's one of our favorites, and we also really like chicken noodle soup. So I thought it was just genius to combine the two. So let me show you how I did it. So to the bottom of my crock pot, I'm going to be adding in about 3 pounds of some boneless, skinless chicken thighs. We really like Mississippi chicken with thighs over the breast. And off camera, I did try to remove as much fat as I could. That's the only downside to chicken thighs. Next, you'll want to sprinkle over a package of either brown gravy mix or an au jus seasoning packet. I just broke down and bought like the big bottle so that I can always have it on hand. And same thing for the ranch. You'll need a package of ranch seasoning, or for me, just 3 tablespoons. Then I'm going to take a half a stick of butter, slice it up, and just place it all around the top of the chicken. You'll also need some pepperoncinis. I think that's how you say it. I do like to add quite a bit because we love the flavor that this brings. I also like to add in just a little bit of the juice for extra flavor. Definitely don't go overboard with that because that is where the spice will come. But yeah, I added my lid and I cooked it on low for 4 hours. So at this point, I shredded it up with 2 forks. It falls apart super easily, and this right here is the perfect meal itself. It goes great over mashed potatoes with plenty of that gravy over the top. That's my favorite way, but you could also do it like over rice, and it's amazing. But since we're going for that chicken noodle soup vibe, I did add in 4 cups of chicken broth. These are the noodles that I use. These are the frozen Reams home-style egg noodles. You'll need 24 ounces. These were a little bit hard for me to find. I did have to go to a couple of different stores. But yeah, so I'm going to show you what I did according to the recipe, but I do not recommend, and I'll explain here in a little bit. But I did throw the noodles in frozen, and I pushed those down into the liquid, covered them, and I cooked those on high for an hour. I was checking around the 30-minute mark, but they weren't quite done. So at an hour, they were done. As you can see, it did get really thick. It's more of like a stew rather than a soup. Sorry for the background noise. I'm sitting by a window. But yeah, so this was good. Don't get me wrong. Love the flavors, love the idea. But I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to my food, and I was mad about the noodles. I knew better. I did. But it was late. I was super tired and honestly a little bit lazy. So I try to have some faith in the people that said this would work out. But the crock pot can do a lot of things, but pasta is not one of them. Like, it just turns out kind of gummy. It doesn't cook it properly. But if you cook the noodles separately and then add it, I think it would be great. But regardless, I really hope that you enjoy this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.